Welcome to today's webinar. Uh, I am Atul Khurana. I am taking care of consulting activities at Maier+Vidorno. I have 14 years of experience in strategic consulting, and majorly my role has been assisting healthcare companies from across the world to look India as an opportunity. So today we are taking this very important webinar on medical device sector in India and what are the opportunities for US-based companies to look India as an opportunity in medical device sector. So the flow of my presentation today will be that I'll be starting with the introduction of the healthcare sector in India, and then we will deep down into medical device sector, followed by how the medical device sector is segmented in India, and what is the value chain in medical device sector, what are the key growth drivers, key challenges, key opportunities in the sector, and then in the later part of the webinar we will touch base upon the regulatory landscape in medical device sector, and then we will be closing by taking few of the questions of the attendees. So let's start with the healthcare industry overview. So healthcare industry, when we say healthcare industry in India, it's a very broad term. It's an umbrella term which encompasses various subsectors under it. Uh, Key subsectors under healthcare industry in India includes your hospitals, which contributes almost 70% to the healthcare industry, then followed by pharmaceutical, which is 13%, then medical devices, medical insurance, and diagnostics. These are the key subsectors of healthcare industry in India. So if we see the market size currently of the healthcare industry, it's estimated to be 160 billion US dollars, and the market is growing at a very fast rate, which is around 20-22% compounded annual growth rate per year. And it's estimated that healthcare industry in India will reach around 372 billion by 2022. So this is a very brief overview of healthcare industry, and now straight away we'll deep down into medical devices sector in India. So the medical device market is estimated to be close to 5 to 5.5 billion in 2016-17. And this subsector of healthcare industry in India is growing at a rate of 13 to 15%, and it's estimated this growth will continue for the coming decade also. If you see in the pie, you'll find that in India, it's predominantly import-driven market, where 75% of the market is with the imports, and then we have domestic manufacturers catering only 25% to the market. Basically, the domestic manufacturers which are present here in India do not have those competencies, I would say, or the sophistication of the technology to move up the value chain. So it's predominantly taken care by the multinational companies which operate on the model of importing and then selling their products into India. Moving to the next slide. This slide talks about how medical device market is segmented in India. So if we see the key segmentation, we'll find that we have a market of medical instrument equipments providing 54% to the total 5 billion of the market. Then we have consumables, which is 26% of the market. Medical implants and aids contribute almost 20% to the market share. In terms of instruments, equipment, it includes all your imaging instruments, surgical instrument, diagnostic instruments and equipments, and others. And from the consumable side, these are the products which are daily used by the hospitals and hospital infrastructure in their day-to-day utilization, like syringes, needles, medical bags, wound care products, and medical textile. In terms of implants, we have all different types of implants for different specialties like orthopedic implants, including your knee, hip implants, cardiovascular implants, including your heart walls, annuloplasty rings, stents, etc. Neurology implants, then we have spinal and dental implants and urology implants also. So this is how the medical device market is segmented predominantly, the key segments in medical device sector in India. Moving to the next slide. This slide talks about the import dependency segment wise. So as we have seen in the previous slide that the medical equipments or instruments is the biggest contributor to the market. And in terms of import dependency also, if we see, so 85% of these equipments and instruments are imported in India, and it's only 15% products in this category which are domestically manufactured. Then the second biggest category in terms of import dependency is the medical implants, which we can see from this chart that it's 75% imports and 25% domestic, followed by consumables where situation is a little different. So 60% is with the domestic manufacturers and 40% of the market is with the imports, because consumables are usually those products which India manufacturers have the capabilities and competencies and technology to do it. So this is how the import dependency looks like in medical device sector in various segments. Moving to the next slide. Uh, this slide talks about the value chain in the industry. So if we see at the bottom of this slide, you'll find that we have different stakeholders at different levels. Like we have research and development on the very left side, then we have manufacturers, then the next stage is the intermediaries through which these products are passed on to the end users. And in research and development, if you see this slide, you'll find you have those original design manufacturers and component suppliers. And during this R&D phase, the pilots are done and clinical trials are done and regulatory approvals for these components are taken, which then goes into manufacturing. And then into manufacturing, we have two options, either to get it, either you have your own manufacturing setup or it is outsourced and the product is contract manufactured. And then we have those intermediaries like distributors who take these products to the hospitals, to diagnostic centers, and primary healthcare centers and general practitioners also. And for complex products where volumes are low and the technological complexity is more, then we have what we call as hospital consultants, authorized agents who act as influencers to get these products placed there. So this is how the medical value chain look like. So moving to the next slide. Uh, this slide talks about the growth drivers. Currently, we have public and private hospitals, and both the sides, the public as well as private hospitals, both are in the expansion mode. And when these hospitals are expanding, definitely 40 to 50% of the costs goes into procuring all these hospital equipments. And also there is a demand from smaller hospitals and laboratories also. The second point talks about different market opportunities in terms of the tiers of different cities. Like tier one, already the market is saturated. All big corporate hospitals are present in these tier one markets. So the next wave where the growth is happening is tier two and tier three markets, like the little smaller towns and cities than the top cosmopolitans and metropolitans in India. So Uh, from there, lots of hospitals are coming up, lots of infrastructure growth is taking place, and they all require all these medical solutions. Uh, the next growth driver for the industry is foreign direct investment, where government has now allowed 100% foreign direct investment through automatic route. Then we have government schemes which are run like government-run health insurance like Ayushman Bharat, which has been very recently been started here in India by our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, and it will cover almost like 500 million households in India. Then we have campaigns like Make in India and private and public partnership initiatives where all US-based companies can participate. Beside that, general growth drivers like affordability because of the growing income here in India, and also Indians who have traveled abroad, they have understood what kind of technology and what kind of products are available in India, abroad, overseas market, and they want same kind of care in India. So that is one driver, which and also hospitals also they want to differentiate themselves from the rest of the hospitals. So they invest in the new technologies, latest technologies, novel products which the other hospitals doesn't have. And then India is moving from communicable to non-communicable diseases. Earlier it was communicable, now it's non-communicable more, where you have lifestyle-related ailments like diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, obesity, etc. So that is another driver for the growth of medical devices. And India is now considered as a hub for medical tourism, specifically for these nearby countries like Middle East, as well as the medical tourists are coming from African countries and few from the developed world also. So that is also driving the market. The next slide talks about key challenges in the market. So if we see the per capita medical device spending in India is still very low compared to China as well as Russia. In India, it's just $3, but compared to China, which is 7, and Russia, which has 42, so it's significantly low. In terms of regulatory environment, if we see before January 2018, it was there were only few notified medical devices which require registration, and so there was inadequate regulatory system. The third point, the key challenge is the lack of accessibility in terms the divide between urban and rural population, where you find that the hospital infrastructure is predominantly present in the urban side of India rather than the rural side of India. And pricing and is one of the key challenges which the Indian market faces. The next slide is it talks about the key opportunities. So for any foreign company, for any US-based medical device company, if it's entering into India, uh, these are the key opportunities. First of all, it's like direct imports and selling of medical devices in India, because we have seen in the previous slides that medical device industry in India is majorly import driven. So it makes all the sense that company looking India as an opportunity for the products should start with the direct imports and selling in India. The second opportunity lies into contract manufacturing, because India is a hub for pharmaceutical side of the things. Similarly, India could be is going to be a next hub for medical devices because of the Make in India campaign also, and government giving initiatives for manufacturing medical devices in India, and availability of talent pool, English speaking population. All this make it as a opportunity for contract manufacturing in India. The third opportunity lies in technical collaborations, because in India we have manufacturers who are still very low in the value chain, and they want to graduate to the next level, and they're looking for technological know-how, technological collaborations in terms of designing and other supports. And as I mentioned in the previous slides, that healthcare infrastructure in India, we have both public as well as private, and it's expanding. New hospitals in tier one cities are expanding in tier two and tier three cities. These hospitals are new hospitals, new infrastructure is coming up, and they're taking medical devices. So when so many hospitals coming up, maintenance of these medical devices also uh, present a good opportunity for those specific companies which only provide such kind of support to the healthcare infrastructure. Besides that, setting up an R&D center in India for medical device testing facilities as well as doing clinical trials is also one opportunity for any US-based company in medical devices sector to look India as an opportunity. Moving to the next slide. Uh, this slide talks about the regulatory situation, regulatory landscape in India. All the previous slides were about the market overlook, how market look like, growth drivers, and opportunities. But very important aspect for any entrant into the India market is to know about the regulatory side of the things, because until and unless the company coming from a foreign overseas territory is not very clear on the regulatory side, they cannot sell products into India. So the main body in India which take care of the registration of the regulatory side of the things is Central Drug Standard Control Organization. The acronym for that is CDSCO. So as I mentioned, briefly touched upon that prior to 2017, from 1st of January 2018, we now have got specific medical devices rules which has come up. But prior to that, it was the medical devices were clubbed together with drugs, and they were regulated under that category only. So CDSO is the main body which lays standards for medical devices. It issues licenses to the manufacturers, to the importers, and from time to time amendments and everything is done by CDSO. And all documents which are related to the registration, like your device master files, plant master files, and every registry document which is required is need to be submitted to the CDSCO office. Moving to the next slide, here we have tried to compare what has changed in India after post to medical device rules with prior to medical devices rules. And here we have taken two sets. One set talks about the import of medical devices in India, and the second set will talk about the manufacturing of medical device in India. So then under it, we will talk about the registration of the product, import of medical devices, what are the obligations of license holder in India, and what is the validity of registration for import. And in the manufacturing side of the things also, we will then talk about the validity of registration as well as what are the I would say obligations of the manufacturer. So we'll start with the registration. Prior to medical devices rule, as we mentioned, that they were only notified medical devices which required registration and import license. There were certain, and all other products were non-notified, and they could be like brought into India and sold into India directly. And in terms of manufacturing, it was state FDA and central licensing approval authority which was giving permission and providing the manufacturing license. But post the medical device rule, which has become effective from 1st January 2018, now all these medical devices have been classified into four classes, which is Class A, Class B, Class C, and Class D. So your Class A products are low risk products, Class B are low moderate products. Then you have moderate high risk product, and category class D is high risk products. And for medical devices as well as for diagnostic products, we have a complete list which product require registration and which product doesn't require registration. Current close to 460 products, medical devices needs registration, and close to 250 in vitro diagnostic products require registration in India. And in terms of import of medical devices, this slide talks about import. So prior to medical devices rule, the registration certificate was provided in form of Form 40, and then import license was required, which is granted in Form 10. And for a new device permission, it was Form 44, if no similar device was available. So that is called as new device. But post the medical device rule, now the import license are issued in form of medical device Form 14, and the concept of self-certification and notified audit system has been introduced. As I mentioned about the obligations, so these are few of the obligations of license holder. So in past, what used to happen, the Indian agent, the authorized agent on whose behalf the registration was taken, he could hold that registration, and then he can hold the import license also. And on behalf of manufacturer, he had the authority to provide to appoint multiple distributors. But post medical device rule, it has changed. Now the authorized agent can hold the import license, he can import the registration, but he is not able to further appoint multiple distributors to sell product in India. The validity of registration has little bit changed. Like it used to earlier, we used to have the renewal of the registration certificates. Now the situation is that you only need to pay the retention fees, and it's for perpetuity. Uh, these are few obligations, once again, of license holder in terms of adverse reaction, what needs to be done. Authorities needs to be informed within 15 days. If there are major changes prior approval, then it needs to be intimated to CLLA within 60 days. Minor changes in 30 days, and if there is a change in constitution or change in authorized agent, so it needs to be intimated within 30 days to the authorities. So, and now taking the other side, which is manufacture of medical devices. The earlier slides talk about the import and selling. So prior to medical devices rules, the authority was state FDA and CLAA. The step one was to get a test license for manufacturing in Form 29, and then getting a manufacturer license in Form 28 if similar device is already available in the market. If it's a new device, then permission was provided in Form 44. But now it's now class-based post medical devices rule. Now it's class-based classification, and for each classification we have a different set of forms. Like for class A it's MD3, class B MD3, class C MD7, and class D MD8. Besides that, the now quality management system need to be in place to qualify the inspection, and which is usually done by the notified bodies like FDA and CLAA. Uh, this slide talks about the notifications or what kind of notifications or audits are required. Like for class A, no audit is required prior to approval, but then after approval, the authorities, licensing authority should be intimated within 120 days. For class B, you have to intimate in 90 days, and for class C and class D, there is an audit by a team of medical device officers and notified body members as well. The validity of manufacturing license is for perpetuity, and retention fee needs to be paid after every 5 years. License holder obligations are almost similar for the import, like if it is an adverse reaction, so it needs to be intimated within 15 days. For major changes, it's 45 days, and for any minor changes, it needs to be informed within 30 days. Uh, uh, License holder obligations continued. So if there is a closure of manufacturing site for 30 days, it should be intimated to CLLA or state FDA. And if there is a change in constitution, it should be reported within 45 days. Uh, this slide talks about labeling. So, and this is all a post to medical device rule, which is after January 1st, 2018. So the label should clearly have the what medical device it is, the details which are necessary, like name of manufacturer and address of manufacturing premises, net quantity in terms of weight, volume, or unit should be mentioned. The month and year of manufacturing and expiry or shelf life is very important. Name and address of importer with his license number is required on the label. And in case the medical device is a sterile device, then date of sterilization it should be mentioned. The device is made up of stable material like titanium or stainless steel, should be supplied in non-sterile, or in case uh, and this slide talks about the labeling which is required for export if in case the medical device is manufactured here in India and US based medical device manufacturer wants to export it, then it should have clearly mentioning the name of the device, batch number, lot number, date of expiry, manufacturer address, license number preceded by letters like license number or LIC number, and then internationally recognized symbols wherever required. So unique device identification will be effective from first day January 2022, which is still 3.5 years away, and shelf life it should ordinarily shouldn't exceed 60 months from the date of manufacture. So now taking the next slide, which talks about various options for foreign companies for US-based medical devices to look India as an opportunity. So there are the basic entry options are like your greenfield entry, brownfield entry, strategic alliances, including JVs or finding partners. Smaller players, new entrants should prefer entering into partnerships, or I would say finding partners in India, distributors, importers in India, and then scale up when they mature, and then they move towards brownfield or greenfield uh, kind of options. And these are few of couple of case studies uh, to provide a gist that how Maier+Vidorno has assisted the companies in this segment. So this slide talks about a European company which is innovator in dental dental application products. So this company came to us with an issue of supply chain, where they were finding it very difficult to manage all those logistic activities. M plus V has a very strong supply chain management team in-house with our own warehouse and our own ERP SAP systems available. So a dedicated 24 by 7 resource was provided to the company to ensure smooth handling of all the critical process of supply chain management, and the value which this company gained out of this assignment was that now they were able to have good material planning. There was cost reductions and material clearances were 90 to 95% on time. And most importantly, their sales team, the work which they were recruited was for sales, and now they have more time to focus on sales rather than thinking about how to manage supply chain in India. The next case study is also from a European company, which is a very big company into breastfeeding pumps and equipments, and they wanted to sell it through hospitals and retailers. So they had issues with the marketing and training and overall administrative support. Then we as an organization, Maier+Vidorno, assisted them with structuring their supply chain, appointing transporters, managing their warehouse, managing their support activities like accounting, billing, processing. So everything was taken care by us, and the value for them for this company was that they got full transparency on sales, on finance, and logistics and order processing. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, most importantly, their sales team now was able to focus on the work they were recruited for, and that was focusing on the customers, finding new customers, doing more sales in India. So if you have any question, you can ask me right now, probably. Thank you very much for the time. Thanks a lot.